Hi there. Thank you for joining us. We are working together to save our families, our communities, and our way of life. I appreciate you tuning in. This is Canceling COVID. We meet every week on Wednesdays and Fridays. I'm Tanya Rivens, and two big wins for North Carolina in the fight to cancel COVID. First, everyone 16 and older will be able to get a COVID-19 vaccine in the state. That's going to happen on April 7th. So if you are been waiting and chomping at the bits, your opportunity is coming. And today, North Carolina moves one step closer to being fully reopened. Yeehaw! Well, that was kind of country, huh? Under Governor Cooper's new executive order, retail stores, salons, museums, aquariums, they can all operate at full capacity. And restaurants, amusement parks, wineries, that is, breweries, and recreation facilities, they are at 75% capacity, and your favorite theaters, sports arenas, bars, lounges, and clubs are at 50% capacity. So we're on our way back. Baby steps, I've been saying all along, gradually, and it's all thanks to you. You've been doing your part. And again, that happens today. So, with all these signs of progression, let's talk about our question of the day. How worried are you about getting COVID-19? You know, we made a lot of positive strides, but are you prepared? Are you still concerned about it? Or you think, oh, it's one of those things that has come and gone, which we know there are still a lot of signs, but are you worried? That's the question. So we're looking at a national poll says 60% of Americans believe the COVID-19 situation in the U.S. is getting better. 49%, well, they say they are very or somewhat worried about getting COVID-19. That's down from a high of 58% in November. So people are starting to get a little bit more confident. But one of the places that are things I want to talk about when it comes to businesses are houses of worship. They aren't governed by Governor Cooper. And of course, his executive order didn't impact them. Initially, they were impacted, but this latest is not. And they've been navigating the benefits and risk of reopening on their own. And it's been quite a challenge. So I want to bring in our first guest, which is none other than the Reverend Dr. Jerry Cannon, who is one of my favorites. He's at C.N. Jenkins Memorial Presbyterian Church. And he's going to join us to kind of talk along those lines as we are waiting for him to come on board. There he is, Dr. Cannon. I know I just aggravate you
Hello.
so much. How you doing?
Well, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for joining me on Canceling COVID. And, we try to have real conversations, that is real talk about real solutions. And when we started looking at the houses of worship and the houses of faith and how the leaders have been navigating around this, I really wanted to get you in on this conversation. So kind of talk about how your ministry has been impacted by COVID, whether you speak from the emotional or financial standpoint.
Okay, sure. Thank you. And it is an opportunity for us to look at ministry differently. Believe it or not, we're now talking about relaunch. And that's our word that we didn't know when it would drop into our lexicon, but we're glad that it is a part of conversation. Yes, about a year ago, as everybody is aware, church as we knew it left us, and church as we know it now is still evolving. Um, there has been some impact, both emotionally and physical, sure spiritual impact. Interesting. Last evening, when we were recording parts of our service, we had a baptism and a receiving a right hand of fellowship, and it was I've been doing this 33 years, and literally forgot what my lines were
Oh
because you
no.
haven't done it.
Oh
So
my.
yeah, one of my ushers said, Reverend, you want the book? I said, no, don't give me the book. Let's take two. So being in the
Oh,
TV industry, you know what that's like when you have to take a double take.
that's right. Yeah.
But yeah, there are some rust spots that we're going to have to oil before we start in person worship. But things have progressed. Yes.
Yeah. When you say relaunch, that's interesting. You're always kind of one of those people ahead of the curve or ahead of the trend. So I like to hear that interesting concept that that's what you all are looking to do. Now, what has it been like to make the necessary adjustments to keep everyone pretty much engaged, but yet and still make sure you focus on their safety?
Sure, there was no hesitation to follow the science and to follow the directions of the governor. We actually closed down the third Sunday of March last year. Some churches were still meeting then before the mandatory fourth Sunday close of worship. And our members embraced that, no hesitations. When we did have some in person, i.e., a very small skeleton scale of office staff, our accounting team, and some of our security, we've got the floor markers. We have sanitation stations. We have temperature checks, sign in for tracing. So we have pretty much followed what we've seen other places that have been open in a very minimum way. But no, we have not, quote, opened for any meetings or worship, in person worship, or any of those gatherings.
Has it been difficult to keep your members engaged, however?
Well, interesting. What we found is that we have wrapped our arms around activities of outreach. So, for instance, every Tuesday, we would have a team to come over, load up the van, and we went to Tent City and all
Oh,
over Charlotte. And that interesting, the only Tuesday it did not rain in the last year was last Tuesday, which is amazing that you would have a Tuesday that was dry for a complete year. But they would literally caravan throughout the city. And we found out that there were several houses of worship and nonprofits that were doing great work Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But during the week, we were pretty much sometimes the only van or only group making drop-offs. It did pick up as people started to see the need was Monday through Sunday. Um, then we also have we've had several events where people have actually dropped by supplies for those in need. And now what we do is every second and fourth Saturday, we prepare hot meals for anybody who is 55 and over. So people are engaged to come and volunteer to cook, take those meals out. So yeah, there's some interaction going on in the church.
and you got some good cooks at CN Jenkins. I know that from experience. So I see Erica Simonton Beatty has hopped on. Good afternoon. Reverend Russell says, hello, my friends. Hey, Reverend Russell, hopping on to check out the show. And we'd love for you guys to weigh in on the question of the day if you're concerned about COVID still. Now, Dr. Cannon, what are your plans, rather, as far as moving back into the sanctuary? Have you even given that any thought, or do you know where you are with that just yet?
Yes, still in the conversation with our leaders, following the science. I think your announcement about the governor lifting certain restrictions will play into the conversation next week. If we're now looking at amusement parks returning and those other social venues, I'm sure that persons who want to come to church are going to raise the question of when can we come back again. But now we're going to err on the side of caution, or
Mhm.
caution the side of error, shall we say, um, and make sure that we don't have to be in the front of the game with reentry, but we definitely want to embrace those members who want to come and who have had shots. So that's going to
Yeah.
be one of the expectations, at least.
Well, we had a conversation about this, Dr. Cannon, because, I'll call you up in a heartbeat and just ask you questions. And one of the things you had shared with me was you're more seasoned saints. They kind of enjoying this watching from home. Has that changed?
Believe it or not, I mean, these are the ones that used to tease their children and grandchildren about bedside Baptists, and
Right.
they have not embraced that, but they have just fallen in love with it. So, um, yeah, that hasn't changed. It's some, well, I guess it's really enlightening, but really kind of fodder to hear them talk about. Well, I'm enjoying watching it on my YouTube, and I mean these are persons in their 70s who
Yeah.
are YouTube junkies. I want to call it now.
Oh, wow. And it's
Yeah.
so interesting because my mom finally was able to go to her Gmail and watch it, and she was so proud, and I was happy for her because she struggled every week. And, try to put yourself in their shoes, and I know it's difficult. Now, financially, you guys, as far as your tithing and offering?
I'm sorry, it broke up a little bit. Could you say that again?
Financially, the tithing and offering and the online donations that you had to make the adjustment. Has that been helpful?
It has been, and we were
Okay,
doing some soft offerings, i.e., Giveify, online to the website, text to give. One of the items that really helped us was because we knew people would be hesitant with electronic giving. As last April, the 1st of April, we sent out self stamped addressed envelopes to all of our members.
good.
Um, 5 envelopes in a pack.
Ooh,
And so there was no reason, or shall we say, we took the excuse and the negative out of giving. So
yeah.
you could put your check, your cash, whatever you, however you want to send it, put in an envelope. And if you didn't walk to your mailbox out front, you could take a clothespin and click on the door. Mail person would pick it up. So, and that worked out tremendously. I mean, people now, surprisingly, we had people driving by the church and dropping off the envelope. And I was like, hey, I just put 54 cents on that stamp, but hey, I did not turn it away at all.
Oh, that's a great idea. And that kind of is a good segue to what we're saying. I see you all making comments. Thank you all for hopping on. I'm going to read those in just a second, but I got one more question for Dr. Cannon, which is you mentioned relaunch, and that again is very interesting to me. So, what does that look like for you? Future churches, if you're looking to relaunch, what does that look like for C. and Jenkins?
Well, actually, we're going to use it to our advantage. I mean, there were some sacred cows and there were some dead cows
Yeah,
that we were carrying pre-COVID. And so those ministries, those activities, those annual days that really were not life-giving, we're not giving resuscitation to those. We're going to be looking at what does it really mean to be more missional minded. So before I think, and I'm sure Dr. Walker and others who will be on your show today will talk about some of the church days that we honored and we respected. But now because of COVID, we realized that they were just days. You know,
yeah.
we can do without them. So yeah, the relaunch is going to help us really sweep the room clean, find out what is most important, what's most impactful, and how to continue to get people and keep them engaged.
Well, I certainly enjoy talking with you. Now, I do want to ask you our question of the day. How concerned are you about getting COVID-19 at this point?
Well, I'm fully vaccinated. We did the shot. First shot was in January, second in February,
Uh,
and we are hosting. Matter of fact, next Friday, the second shot, along with Our Lady of Consolation.
oh,
So
good.
we would have been the site for both shots one and two on two occasions, and hope to get in line, continue to host those vaccine shots.
So, what time on Friday? And can anyone come or do they have to have an appointment?
Well, this is second shot. So if you receive your first shot at C and Jenkins, this was a combination of on our campus, but hosted by Our Lady Consolation, then you would have received an appointment. And so Atrium would send that out to you. So it's not open for first time drive ups as it was initially. This is really for second shot
Well, that's
persons.
the follow-up. So,
Yes, follow up.
Holy Week kicks off on Sunday, and just checking any special services you'd like to share.
Yes, yes. Well, we Palm Sunday, and then throughout the week, there's a service each day. We're going to have a Monday, Thursday service, associate pastor preaches, and Good Friday we have reflections from our young adults. So, pretty excited about that. That is a first time for us to really have laypersons give their reflection on the seven last words.
Oh, Dr.
Mhm.
Jerry Cannon of St. Jenkins Memorial Presbyterian Church. I love, 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 and appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time. Is there anything else you want to share?
Well, thank you for what you're doing. It's a great show, great venue, and I hope to be a groupie checking in on your station all the time.
Oh, you've always been there for me from day one. Thank you so much, Dr. Cannon. I appreciate it.
All right, bye now.
All right. Let me check in on some of these comments we got here. Erica Simonton Beatty says she's worried about getting COVID again, even with having the vaccine. Also, Reverend Russell, he says, I have not really thought about getting, let's see, I'm trying to see if I can get that up. Haven't really thought about getting the virus, but again, I'm not planning to go out to meet the public a lot. We do drive up and celebrate Holy Communion on first Sundays. Tell Jerry I said hello. Hopefully, Dr. Cannon was able to hear that he was hopping off. You also said you only had one member who has asked about coming back to the inside of the building, back for worship service. And your seasoned saints love virtual worship. Again, that's Reverend Russell. Drop the name of your ministry. I can't. It's like fleeing my mind right now, Reverend Russell, so we can share that. And I appreciate you oh so much. Another dear friend. Also, Joe Lowry's on. He says, very nice information and it's very informative. We appreciate that. Dwayne Rivens has hopped on. He's out of Atlanta, well, the Georgia area, not quite Atlanta, but he's in Georgia. Hi, cousin. I appreciate you tuning in. So, Dr. Jerry Cannon, singing Jenkins Memorial Presbyterian Church, one of the great houses of worship here in the city. As we continue, of course, I've got another guest that is going to join us. And of course, I wanted to speak to these guys, not just because tying in with the changes that Governor Cooper has made, which has given us life. Boy, it's really good. You know, the optimism appears to be growing according to the national polls. So I still love to hear your comments. Are you worried about getting COVID-19? I love to hear from you. Now, the vaccine access now is the main reason why we've been able to do as well as we have. But I did see a report that in Mecklenburg County, we were still a little bit behind some other parts of the state. But 52% of Americans in a new Gallup poll, they believe that disruptions from COVID-19 will last well into the second half of the year. And I think that's probably pretty accurate. It's going to take some time. But speaking of back here in North Carolina, with Resurrection Sunday just a week away, we're talking with spiritual leaders about plans to reopen church doors and see where they stand. And so I want to bring in another one of my faves. It's none other than Dr. Dwayne A. Walker of Little Rock AME Zion Church. And you have to know him too because he's always out there working in the community. One of the coolest things about Dr. Walker is, you know, no matter who you are, where you're from, what your faith is, you're always welcome inside of his church. And that's what I really love. How many times you've got an event or whatever, if it's available, he's going to be there for you. So, hey, good afternoon, Dr. Walker. Thank you for taking the time to join us as well.
Thank you so much for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. And of course, you heard Governor Cooper's phase 2 reopening plan. And, you know, how does that really impact your current services? And I say that in a way I know it doesn't impact them, but kind of speak on that a little bit as far as, you know, you're not speaking for AME Zion churches so much, but, you know, Little Rock.
Thank you. Well, it's good to see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You know, we've been in this space for over a year now, as everyone has been dealing with the ravages of this pandemic and how, you know, frankly, very scary it's been. You know, just the whole notion of having to stay home and quarantine and seeing everyone wearing masks and having the social distance, not wanting to touch anything, not wanting to go anywhere, running out of toilet paper, Jesus.
Yeah.
All of that was going on. And so it's good to see that those things are starting to come back to normal. And there's hope. And
Yeah.
I'm excited about that, although continue to remain cautious and careful about how we reopen and when we reopen.
And it's funny to hear you say that. As we look back now, we can laugh. My goodness, boy, did we go through some things and we have come out on the other side. Now, you and I talked, we've talked as well. And what I appreciate about you and Dr. Cannon, you know, you always say, you know, Tanya, well, how are you doing? And that's so important. But that speaks to also how you put your ministry, your members first. Is there any talk or any conversation as far as you're concerned as heading back inside of the facility?
From what I'm hearing, and our bishop has kept us very well apprised with his conversations with the governor and his instructions to us that we, well, I have to speak for me, that I'm abiding by very wholeheartedly. Um, we are still just watching these numbers. And naturally, of course, we know that the numbers are decreasing in terms of the numbers of deaths and numbers of infections, but there's still numbers of infections and there's still deaths.
Right.
And until that subsides, I don't think that many of us are going to try to be going back in. I refuse to be a super spreader, have anything that's going to be a super spreader event. And so we continue to do our services virtually. There's just skeleton crew of us inside the Little Rock Church on Sunday mornings. I have a minister of music, about 4 or 5 singers, and then our AV crew and technology ministry. They're there. And then, of course, in another part of the building, our finance team is there to receive funds from our members who want to drop them by. And aside from that, that's all that's been in our building. We try to keep things just a few people at a time. The largest event that we had was, of course, last Thursday when we hosted a vaccination clinic at Little Rock, and there were more people in the building then, but they were getting vaccinated.
Yeah.
So we wanted to be sure that we maintain social distancing and that they practice all of the necessary precautions to keep everyone safe.
That's good to hear. So, what has it been like meeting the spiritual needs of your membership and having to do it virtually?
The good thing about it was not a far departure from what we were already doing. Fortunately, well, I mean, it's not fortunately, but we have been live streaming since 2012. The first service that was live streamed from our church was unfortunate. It was my wife's service. My wife's funeral service was live streamed, and from that service, we began to live stream since then. And so our crew just has been getting better and making sure that the quality of our live stream was improving. So by the time the COVID came about, we were already pretty much familiar with that territory,
Uh-huh.
and our members were as well. So we added Facebook, and we already had live stream on our website. And then, of course, we continue to communicate with our members weekly and check on them. Anything that we can do. We have Bible study on Wednesdays. I go to church and teach Bible study from the pulpit, and then our crew, some of the part of the crew is there to film me doing that. We make that available all day. And of course, we have our radio broadcast that continues to come on every Sunday morning. And so with that, we've been able to see really an increase in viewers as well as in listeners. And we've been able to expand our ministry during this pandemic in a very remarkable way. Little Rock members have been just phenomenal in terms of their response and in terms of their cooperation, that we have proven that we can indeed be the church, even though we're not at church, we can still be the church. And that's what's been so fascinating to see in my local congregation, but also in other churches, to see how church has come alive, and the church has been outside, and the church has been going to Tent City and then knocking on doors and doing everything that we can to be creative to reach people for Christ. So that's been a wonderful thing to see.
And Dr. Walker, we had the conversation as well about, people that were in a position, ministries that was already doing, if you were already doing virtual or you were doing live streaming, you were ahead of the curve. Some of those that were not or hadn't prepared in that way, it was a little bit of a challenge to get
Yes.
on board. So it's interesting to see. Reverend Russell is on here. He's at Myers Tabernacle, AME Zion. He says hello to everyone. Glad to have him on board and watching. But you're right. Little Rock has been one of the trailblazers in the community and just solid foundation for so many things that represents the Charlotte community. I'd love to get your take on what do you think the Church of the Future looks like?
I heard what Reverend Cannon said, Dr. Cannon said, and he's absolutely right. We have to relaunch, and we have an opportunity to really assess what works, what we need to keep, and what we need to discard. I know one thing that we're having to do, or we will be doing, is that we've been advised not to use hymn books or Bibles in the pews. And so we'll be getting rid of those, but we're in the opportunity. We get, have now an opportunity to add screens that we did not have before. So we're doing some major renovations and remodeling at Little Rock during this period. So by the time folks come back, we'll either it's still in the throes of that remodeling, or we would have accomplished it. And they will see that we will do things just a bit differently. More technology will certainly be utilized in terms of our meetings. We won't have as many in-person events that we can, especially when we know we can do that virtually. So that's been phenomenal. that we have in the Methodist structure, and I know you have Methodist in your background, and you know the class leader system, the
Yes, sir.
class members, and so it's been very helpful that they have been meeting virtually. They've been getting in touch with their members to stay apprised of what's happening in the church and helping me as a pastor know
Uh,
what their needs may be. And so they've been meeting virtually. I think that because of that, they've been seeing a greater participation from their groups, small groups, and hopefully we can capitalize on that.
well, I
Uh,
have to say,
mhm.
I didn't mean to cut you off. It's just I
Sure.
don't know why it's funny to me that there will no longer be hymns or Bibles, and it just took me back to growing up in church and passing notes. So it's not going to happen that way anymore. But that's a
Yeah,
great idea because more than likely it helps to get more participation too, and people
hmm,
looking forward. So I love that. So it's the small things that you don't think about until you're kind of forced to do it.
yeah, yeah. And then our online contributions have been great too. Again, something we already had in place. We already had Givelify. We've been doing Givelify for 4 or 5 years now, and so we already have that in place. We have, of course, we have PayPal was already in place on our website, and we added Cash App. And so between the online giving and folks actually stopping by and also sending in their tithes and offerings, God has been blessing us, and we've been able to do very well in terms of sustaining the ministry during this time. And the other side of it is that the expenses have been cut down because there are not people in the building, and some of the things that we would have to do in that case we don't have to do. So therefore, that has also been a help to allow us to get some other things done in direct funds and other ways to enhance our capacity to serve.
Thank you, Dr. Walker. Before I ask the final question, I know you've got some services coming up, kicking off next week as well.
Yes, we do. Little Rock, and I've been here for I'm in my 16th year, believe it or not, and we have had an annual Seven Last Word service in the evening, and that has become a very popular service here in Charlotte, thankfully. And we were not able to do it last year, of course, because of the pandemic space. We had thought about trying to do something, but at that point, everyone was just overly concerned about coming into any space, and so we just showed we featured highlights from previous services last year, but this year we actually will have a Seven Last Word service. It's the pandemic version. We've got ministers, some very dynamic preachers who will be featured on next Friday at 7 p.m. Just very quickly, and just happy to one of my favorite preachers, and his love her personality, Reverend Sheila Sherrill, over at Clinton Memorial Amy Zion Church, is doing the first word. A young man named Demont Hairston, who is now in Greenville, North Carolina, is doing the second word. The third word will be done by Dr. Sheldon Shipman. The fourth word is Reverend Mark Evans from Zonaville. Fifth word is one of our ministers, and you know her, Reverend G. Rebecca Warren, who's now
Yeah.
her own a pastor of her own church, will be doing the fifth word.
Yeah.
And then we have Dr. Avenue Knox from Bethel AME doing number 6. And then Bishop Kenneth Yelverton from City of Refuge is doing the seventh word. So we're excited about that lineup. The wonderful singers of Little Rock will be sharing, and it's going to be a great, great time on next Friday evening at 7 p.m. Hope everybody will tune in.
Yes, absolutely. And I look forward to it every year. So before I let you go, Dr. Walker, are you concerned about getting COVID at all?
I had COVID. I actually had it. Back in November. In fact, my grandson and I both were infected with the COVID, but I did not know I had it until
Uh,
it was gone. So I did not have any of those extreme symptoms. I had very light symptoms. In fact, I thought I just had a cold, and every time I felt congested, I took cold medicine and I felt better. But because, fortunately, I was still quarantining, I wasn't going anywhere, and just only one person that I was around, I think but fortunately, we came through it okay. And so I have the antibodies I am now. I received my first vaccination. I look forward to April 15th at Little Rock to receive the second shot, and then I'll be fully vaccinated. And so, no, I'm not concerned at this point of getting it because I'm doing what I can to avoid getting it again. And then I want to encourage everybody else to do the same thing, to get vaccinated and to keep yourself safe and your family safe as well.
Thank you, Dr. Walker. Is there anything else you would like to leave with us before I let you go?
I'm just so continue to be so proud of what you're doing and who you are and the information you continue to provide for the community. Thanks for what you're doing and just keep up the good work. And just want everyone to remain safe and let's look forward to just the spirit of Resurrection Sunday, and we will continue to celebrate the victory of resurrection power and victory even over this virus.
Absolutely. Mutual respect, sir. I appreciate you oh so much. That's Dr. Dwayne Walker of Little Rock Amy Zion Church. Love those guys. I can call on them at any time. And boy, they've helped me through so many battles. And both of those guys, Dr. Cannon and Dr. Walker, are part of a campaign that was kicked off by the Mecklenburg County Health Department, encouraging people to take advantage of resources, get vaccinated, get information. Dr. Cannon even left a note saying, thanks for the opportunity to serve. He loved being a part of this communication platform. And he's off to Kannapolis to see his mom. And we often laugh about that because he's just as country as I am. So great stuff. Now, in other news, as we begin to wrap things up, business owners are getting more time to apply for the PPP loans. As soon as today, President Biden, he's going to sign a bill to extend the deadline from March 31st, which is next week, to May 31st. I think that's really good that that's being taken into consideration. Meantime, some small businesses can they can also apply for up to $500,000 through the Small Business Administration. This is a program that they're offering, and the SBA, their emergency lending program. These guys are pretty good about walking you through what is needed. I appreciate you all hopping on and sharing today. You can go to sba.gov for details about that. Again, up to $500,000 for small businesses. More funding out there. Take advantage of it. And also, help is on the way for families who lost loved ones to COVID-19. I thought this was really interesting. A new FEMA program will reimburse you funeral expenses. Think about that. They're looking to help you out for people who died from the virus between January 20th, 2020 and December 31st, 2020. Go to FEMA.gov for additional information about that. Otherwise, I just think it's great that we had this conversation, especially on a Friday. What a way to kick off our weekend. So thank you again to Dr. Jerry Cannon, C.N. Jenkins Memorial Presbyterian Church, and Dr. Dwayne A. Walker, Little Rock Amy Zion Church, for joining us. Thank you, Reverend Russell, also Myers Tabernacle Amy Zion, for hopping on and sharing your thoughts. We really appreciate that. Working together, we're going to save our families. Of course, I would like to invite you to join me this Sunday, Sounds of Inspiration, at 7 a.m. Tune in to 103.3, 100.5. Tell others about canceling COVID and all the great information that we're providing. Because again, working together to save our families, our communities, and our way of life. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you back here on Wednesday. I'll be listening for you on Sunday. Together, we are going to cancel COVID. Have a great weekend, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us.